Hey guys, Lance Danger here, and this is the first video of a series that I'm planning to do right now, which I had mentioned briefly before in my hundreds videos. I'll have an update soon of the hundreds videos, so I hope you guys look forward to that. And right now I want to talk about my main webcomic, Peterson, the Mighty Warlord. And this is a comic that's been online for nearly 10 years now. It'll be 10 years in August that I started pushing this on the Duck Webcomics. And so I kind of wanted to do this kind of like thoughts on every chapter that I've done up to now so far, inspired by JFM Studios videos talking about his original versions of his comics before he started posting them on his website as a webcomic. I'll leave links in the description box to his YouTube channel and his website as well, so you can check it out. It's a pretty fun, lighthearted comic in the style of like RTX to an extent, and like 90s sitcoms like Keenan and Cal and such, and it's just a fun webcomic to check out. Very quickly, I wanted to like show the progression of the covers of the prologue. The very first prologue that I did, which was horrendous, and I'll probably show in a video later on if people are really curious to see how badly the original prologue was. This was a pinup I had done, the line art, in 1998, I believe, and then I just kind of colored pencils around 2003, and I did like a mini printed version of the original prologue. I had done it, printing it from my printer, actually, from my computer printer. A very archaic mini comic that I did. Then afterwards, I did it a little bit more polished. I did it more from photocopies, and I did this cover instead. And there you can see the original Prospecto Arts Studios logo that I had done, original Mighty Warlord logo as well, before I did it a bit more professionally for the webcomic. And then I did yet another version, a third version right here of the prologue. This one was actually a printed version I did for a comic book convention that my partner in crime, Manuel Carmona, at Truthful Comics, he organized a convention around 2007, 2008, I believe, more or less. I'm thinking more 2007. And I did a handful of printed copies of Warlord and my other webcomic, Nevermind, and it actually went over pretty well. I was pretty proud of this cover because even though it's still crude and not very well made, it was one of the first colored pieces on the computer that I felt that I was starting to get the hang of doing computer coloring. So that's when I was starting to do that transition from traditional coloring to computer coloring at last. And then there's this other version of the prologue. This is the one that this version was the one that I eventually replaced the other versions of the prologue online. I printed this out and I gave it away for free for a free comic book day in 2009, actually. And it was a fun experience. People really enjoyed it. People liked it. I really liked this cover because, again, it kind of showed that progression to now the colors are a lot smoother. They're a lot better now, composition wise as well. And this has been one of the more popular covers that I had done, and certainly it's one of my favorite ones. Not particularly well drawn, but it's still one of my favorite ones nonetheless. Which leads us to this right here. This cover was originally done with the intention of doing a manga-sized trade edition of the first storyline of book 1 of Fred Peterson, the Mighty Warlord. This logo that's here instead now, that was done by my good friend Carlos Alvarez de Costa. He's a fantastic 3D designer, and he is incredibly talented doing logos as well. I'm always going to be grateful and thankful for this logo that he helped create. And again, like, this is probably my favorite of the bunch because, again, there's more progression in the coloring, and I just like the overall composition of Warlord jumping out, and then Fred, Jane, Cheryl, and John in set there with the city in the backdrop and the ocean and the sky. Like, that could have been drawn a lot better, but for the time it wasn't too bad. And there's the title page. The titles in my comics, many people have noticed by now that I usually use verses from songs or song titles that kind of tie into the story itself. So Talk Back at the Ocean, I just kind of related it to, Fred and Jane, as you will see later on. They're in a beach in this story, so I just thought it would be kind of fun to just use it, like Talk Back at the Ocean, straight from a Third Eye Blind song from their second album, Blue. The song is called 10 Days Late, and this is just like a random verse that appears, a random hook in the song that kind of doesn't have to do with the rest of the song, but I just always found it amusing, so I just kind of included it there. Here's Jane making her first appearance. This was not part of the original prologue. This is part of the special edition I had made the printed copy of to bulk up the page count, as well as just kind of like add a nice scene with Jane. Jane, of course, is Fred Peterson's best friend. They've known each other since childhood. And here's Fred chilling, just looking at the sunset, something he does to kind of like soothe himself after a rough day or when he's just pensive or something. And here they are running into each other. It's always nice to do these kinds of scenes with Fred and Jane, like the more kind of intimate scenes where they show how they genuinely know each other and just really care very deeply for each other as well, to the point where they don't even need to like say something's wrong. If they say the contrary, they're going to know something is definitely happening. One thing that readers have pointed out from the beginning is that they really like Jane's eyes and just like her facial expressions throughout this part of the story. And of course, here's Fred finally caves in and starts talking about what's bothering him. These 2 pages were actually not very well received, and I can really understand why. I kind of wanted to go kind of experimental artsy on it, since it was kind of like a flashback, and I kind of wanted to add an air of mystery as well, but it kind of came off sloppy and borderline lazy, and I can understand why people would think that, because it could have been done better. Like, that's the point of experimenting. Sometimes you connect and sometimes you don't. It's a risk, and I'm usually a risk taker when it comes to doing art and writing this comic, so this is one of those instances where it didn't really connect. And here's just another moment with Fred and Jane, getting interrupted at the phone. Like, there always seems to be like, whenever there's like this genuine moment of connection between them, that probably would entail something else happening. Something interrupts them, and on this occasion it was a phone, and that kind of frustrated a couple of readers. They were like, oh, it was such a nice moment, and they got interrupted. And they got interrupted by none other than Cheryl, Fred's girlfriend, and this is her first appearance in the story. Cheryl is Jane's best friend, and as I said, Fred's girlfriend. Cheryl came later into the fold. Fred, Jane, and John knew each other since childhood, and Cheryl just kind of came into the fray in high school. That's where they all met her and became friends with her. And she was definitely probably the most polarizing character in the entire story. Like, I'm not going to spoil anything for everyone, especially since I'm going to keep talking about further chapters as I do these videos. So let's just say she's a very polarizing and somewhat controversial character in the story, and she was both a headache and a pleasure to write in a sense. There's Fred, Jane, and Cheryl having a fun little moment there over the cell phone. And of course, this is Cheryl when she's telling Fred that she cannot go on the date they had planned for that night. And this is her just kind of pensive in her room because they had to cancel those plans, and now Fred is probably going to hang out with Jane, which is something that comes into play later on in this story. And there is John making his first appearance. This page was also not original. This was just included later on, like, again, as part of like bulking up the story and kind of giving more, fleshing out the characters a little bit more, and actually adding a little layer of mystery as well. John, his role diminished quite a bit throughout book 1 and a bit through book 2 as the story progressed. Originally he had a bit of a bigger role, but it kind of took back seat to an extent. His role diminished a little bit, but towards the end of book 2 and later on, he is going to have a much bigger role and be much more to the story as well. And here we also see Jane hinting at problems with her boyfriend. As many of the readers know by now, she has a very rocky, tumultuous relationship with her boyfriend Charles, which is his name. And this last panel, even though it's not well drawn, to be quite honest, it's probably one of my favorite scenes in all of book 1 and probably in all of book 2 so far, because even though it wasn't particularly well drawn, I feel like it captured the emotional moment of them lamenting their respective problems with their respective significant others. And I feel like it's one of those few times in my comic that I was able to kind of translate that relatively well, the emotion I wanted to evoke in the artwork. And here they are deciding to just go out and have fun, and there it is. That's the final page. It actually led to one of the most better received lines in the story, when Jane like flirtatiously is something about Fred not ruining the night because she knows he has some kind of sexual attraction towards her, and he just says that not to worry, that he has his trusty chastity boxers on. I'm very happy that so many readers really like that line. I don't know if it's because it kind of came out of nowhere, or just kind of like showing that spontaneity and level of comfort between the two, that they could kind of joke around like that, or maybe they just actually pictured chastity boxers, which kind of funny in a way, I guess. And of course, Jane calls Fred a doofus, and Fred calls Jane a goofball. That's kind of like the pet names they have for each other since they were kids. And that is the prologue in a nutshell. Here's the end page. Again, this was inspired by mangas that I had read before, and also from Roberto Ramos' Crimson, when he would do title pages and cliffhanger for his comic book Crimson before it was sold out to DC Comics when Jim Lee sold his Wildstorm Studios to DC. So that's the prologue in a nutshell. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm going to try to do a video like this at least once a month with every chapter that I've updated so far of Warlord. Thank you all for the support for these nearly 10 years now that I've been doing this webcomic, and the 10 years that I've been on YouTube, even though it's in recent years that I've started to upload more videos. I'm really thankful for the support that you guys have shown, and hopefully that gratefulness will in me doing better quality work, not only on this channel but on my comics and every project that I'll do. So really, without getting too mushy or extending this longer than it should be, really from the bottom of my heart, thank you, and see you guys next time.